Well, hello, my lovelies. Thanks for joining me again today. This is Janet Perez coming to you from the Painted Saguaro, and I am joined again with Paint Couture products and Paint Couture paints to show you how I am going to create a really beautiful product with this old dirty chair that I picked up at a local auction. White furniture does not last, and especially if you've got pets. So this is what the look that I'm going for is, and we're going to get started right now. So watch me do my stuff. First, I poured some distilled or purified water into my yogurt container, and I'm grabbing some Autumn Sage, which is a Paint Couture paint. I put maybe about a quarter cup of paint in with about a cup of water and mixed it pretty good. And I am just putting this on the fabric. The fabric is still slightly damp because I used my upholstery cleaner in order to get this fabric completely clean. I mean, it was really, really dirty. And I did that the day before I started painting, but it was still, like I said, slightly damp. So I'm not spritzing it with water or anything else, and the paint is just soaking right in because, like I said, I'm doing normally you'd want to do a 2-to-1 mix, but our paint is so deeply pigmented, and it's just, as you can see, getting great coverage here. So you don't really need a lot of paint to water ratio when you're doing a painted fabric look. You're more or less dyeing the fabric, not painting it. And with the heavily pigmented paints that we have, it's really quite easy to do. So I'm just using a chip brush here, and I'm going over all of the fabric on this piece, and I'm taking care not to get too much paint on the wood because I want to make sure that the wood is easy for me to paint later, and I unfortunately have to paint the wood because there was literally some chunks missing out of it where some little critter took some bites out of the wood, so I had to repair that with some wood putty, and that can't be hidden with anything other than paint. So that's unfortunately what I have to do. So now I am using the color Pinecone and a small artist brush, and I am going over all of that wood, and I am painting it with that Pinecone color. It's a beautiful kind of, I want to say a light oak color. Well, it's Pinecone color. I mean, that's why it's called Pinecone, right? And I'm just using that artist brush. I'm being careful not to get the paint on the fabric itself. If you do get a little bit on there, you can actually spritz it with some water and then paint over it with your Autumn Sage again. Now here what I'm doing is I'm painting the back of the chair. Well, not the back, but the back rest of the chair with Buttercream because I hadn't painted it previously. And because I'm going to decoupage this portion, I want to make sure it's got a coat of paint on it so that my decoupage medium does not soak into the fabric. I want it to have a base coat of paint on it in order for the decoupage medium to have something to grab onto and not just absorb into the fabric. So I'm just giving it a light coat of the Buttercream, and we're good to go on that. And as you can see, I wrapped saran wrap or cellophane along the edges so I don't get this Buttercream on the rest of the part that I've already painted. So here I've got a foam brush, and I've got my decoupage paper. This is called Zazu, the Toucan, and I just love this. It's got such a cool tropical vibe to it. And I'm using my decoupage gel. I actually poured some into another clean, you can tell I eat a lot of non-fat yogurt, right? because I've got tons of these containers. But I poured some into my yogurt container just so that my foam brush would fit in there easily. So I'm putting a ample layer, but not a thick layer on here, just so that I have good coverage. And then I'm pressing the bird paper on there gently and carefully, and making sure that it's straight. And then I'm kind of working my way down as I go down and work my way down on the paper. I use a brayer during this process, and I also use my hands, and I use another probably about a 2-foot piece of cellophane to sort of smooth the paper out as I go. You know, if you get any little tears in your paper, which is bound to happen, especially when you're working on a soft fabric and you're pressing down into it, you can easily touch up with some paint and nobody will ever be able to see it. But see how I'm using the cellophane, just because you don't want to use your hands necessarily, because that will tend to drag on the paper and tear it more easily. So here I'm using that brayer over the cellophane. You don't want to do it directly on the paper because it could actually possibly stick against the decoupage gel and cause tearing. And I have a little bit of wrinkling on here, and that's okay because I like that kind of distressed look. I'm going to, lightly sand it maybe if I can't get all those wrinkles out. But here I'm just working on getting those edges glued down really well and pressing them in and tucking them in to the sides of that wing back. And once I get this completely decoupaged on and get everything set in there, what I will do is I'm going to give it one coat of the flat top coat, and you'll see me do that in just a minute. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the paint, the Autumn Sage, another coat over the fabric, and then I'm going to give it a light sanding. And you can sand in between the coats, that's fine. I didn't need to with this because this fabric is, I want to say it's kind of a canvasy fabric, so it was really soft and it almost felt like a velvet after I painted it. It was really, really nice fabric. And I'm using that little artist brush just to get into the cording on the trim of this, because that chip brush doesn't really work into those little tight areas in there. It's got double cording on this chair. So I like to use the artist brushes to just make sure I get into all that detail. So here you can see I grabbed my Extreme Guard top coat in flat, and I'm going to go over my decoupage and give it one really good, and this is after it's thoroughly dried. So this is the next day, okay? And you can see most of those wrinkles are completely gone. There may be a few still on there, but that's okay. It just gives it that sort of aged, weathered look, in my opinion. I mean, this is a handmade piece. Nothing is going to be perfect. It's not machine made. And you have to just sort of accept that and love it. And I'm using junk mail flyers to kind of avoid getting the top coat onto the fabric part. So what I do is I use that to get into the seam there, and that way I can get down deep into the edges of the decoupage part and not get the top coat onto the painted fabric. Now this is a 320 sanding pad, and as you can see, it's one of those smooth ones, so it doesn't have any real texture on it. It's more of a, and I honestly don't know what kind of a sanding pad it's called, but I'm using it to sand down the fabric now to get it soft to the touch, and boy, is it soft. And I'm just doing it by hand. I'm not using a machine or anything else. And now, after that's all done, what I'm using is my homemade beeswax furniture wax. This is a mixture, and you can look up a recipe online. I made this a couple of years ago, actually, but it's a mixture of beeswax that I melted along with some mineral oil and a little bit of lecithin, I believe is what I added to it. And that keeps it so that it's a water-soluble furniture wax, and it's really perfect for this process. It doesn't leave an oily or a greasy feeling, but you can use any water-soluble furniture wax. A commercial one that is my favorite is Debbie's Design Diary DIY brand. That works really well when you're doing painted furniture, painted fabric pieces like this. There's other brands that you can use. I don't recommend using a petroleum-based, but yeah, I mean, just look it up online on how to create your own furniture wax, and then you can do it like I did. It's pretty simple. So anyway, that's the process here. I'm just brushing it on with the wax brush and buffing it off with a clean t-shirt, and you get no wipe off of the paint product off of the fabric, so there's no residual coming off of that fabric. It's a beautiful, soft, sagey green. The decoupage paper also gets waxed when I'm done, and so does the wood. Everything on this piece has gotten a complete wax treatment. So here it is, the finished chair. Zazu, the Toucan, in the perfect wingback chair. What do you guys think? I love him, and I think he's absolutely beautiful, but I love tropical birds, and I love the tropics anyway. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so pleased that you're here. If you haven't done so already, please click that like button and that subscribe button so that you can catch all of my videos. Please make a comment and let me know what you saw here that you liked or what you didn't like, and I'm happy to talk with you about it. And come back and see me next time for my next video. Thanks for joining us, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys. Take care.